Have you ever considered how a naturally occurring material can shape the fortunes of an entire region? Well, this week on Country Lives, I've come to a market town acknowledged as one of the most beautiful in the country to learn how its fame and fortune was literally quarried from the ground. My journey will take me millions of years into the past to learn how this particular region owes its appearance to a long-forgotten sea.
More power for me.
Before plunging into the unknown at a quarry being used to recreate some of the most dangerous places on Earth, and trying to keep a steady hand as I set about some essential DIY on one of the finest stone buildings in Britain. An ancient jewel in Lincolnshire's crown, the market town of Stamford has long been famed for its abundance of stone buildings, not least the 5 medieval churches which dominate the town centre. But this beautiful man-made environment is only here today because of 2 accidental and naturally occurring features. The first is the River Welland, which strikes a huge swathe through this part of the landscape, creating a very often flooded river valley. The second is the underlying stone, which rises very close to the surface here, creating a natural fording point. In fact, the original name of this town was Stony Ford. In later years, bridges were built, and one of Britain's most important routeways cut straight through the town. The Great North Road, or what later became the A1, has been trodden and travelled by everyone from Romans to marauding Saxons and Danes. It acted as a critical artery between London and the northern counties and turned what would ordinarily have been a sleepy market town into a thriving inland port. With huge numbers of travellers using what was effectively England's first motorway, Stamford grew prosperous as enterprising locals opened coaching inns and taverns. Many survive to this day. Indeed, the George Hotel is reputed to have stood on the same site for some 1,000 years. With all this business passing through Stamford, it's only natural that the townsfolk invested in their bricks and mortar, or in this case, stone. But just where does it all come from? To understand how it first got here, you have to imagine this whole region underwater. Stamford is built of limestone, which was formed in the bed of a sea around 165 million years ago from the remains of countless marine organisms. To find out more, I've made the 3-mile journey from the town to one of the biggest and oldest quarries in the area, here at Ketton. So how long have they been extracting stone from this quarry?
Well, as a stone quarry, it goes back to mists of time, really.
Stamford resident and keen amateur geologist Alan Dawn has been investigating this place for over 40 years. He's the undisputed guardian of its ancient secrets.
You never know what sort of fossil you're going to walk into. Well, I have found here bits of crocodile, I found bits of sharks, shark's fins, I found those here. As well as all the shellfish, ammonites, belemnites, brachiopods, sea urchins, you name them, they're all there. And there are millions, literally millions and millions, trillions of them.
Amazing.
You never come into the quarry without finding something new. So it's really a fascinating place. And of course, living right on the doorstep, it's ideal.
So this is your playground, really?
It is rather, yes.
Ketton may be paradise for a geologist like Alan, but it's also still very much a working quarry. With such rich pickings to be had from the deep vein of Lincolnshire limestone, the quarry face is currently over 2 miles long and is still growing. Today, much of the stone is crushed to make cement. 1.4 million tonnes of the stuff each year, to be precise. But the best stone is still set aside for the building trade, thanks to a unique quality it developed long ago under the constant lapping of waves in that clear, shallow sea.
This is what they call a freestone. If you put the lens on it and have a close look at it, you can see that it's made up of lots and lots of tiny little grains. When it was first described, people said, well, it looks like fish roe.
I was going to say it looks like cod roe, doesn't it?
Yes,
yeah.
And the Greek name for fish roe is uon, so it's called an oolitic limestone.
Okay.
It's a beautiful stone when it's properly cut.
So this is an oolitic limestone made of ooliths.
Yes.
And yet you refer to it as a freestone. Why is it called a freestone?
It's called a freestone because there's no bedding in it, and whichever way you cut it, it always looks the same. It's like cutting through a rice pudding, really. If you cut through a rice pudding, you always get the same face. It never looks any different.
So you're free to cut it in any
right.
direction you wish.
Yes, yeah.
From these humble beginnings, Ketton freestone has been used not just in the buildings of Stamford, but also in some of our most celebrated architecture. Perhaps most famously in the 19th century screen wall of King's College, Cambridge. Impressive results from a material formed under the sea millions of years ago. Just what do you do with a quarry once it's fulfilled its useful purpose, all the stone has been extracted? Just up the road here, another quarry has developed a niche market, training people to use these sorts of vehicles for the purpose that they were originally designed for, going off-road. There are scores of abandoned quarries around Stamford, and here at a small site known as Tixover, an enterprising local team have found a way to get the most out of this ravished landscape. How are you doing, Ed? Good to see you.
Hello, Chris. How you doing?
You going to show me around?
Yes.
Ed Cobley has been driving 4x4 vehicles since he was 12, and he's competed in rallies around the world. But his day job here at Tixover involves driving somewhat slower.
It really does look like a lunar landscape in here, doesn't it?
It is.
The limestone just bleaches.
Tixover is a very famous site in the off-road world. It's a beautiful site because it lends itself so well to the training that we're doing for people going out into the foreign countries.
So what sort of training do you get involved in? What's the primary function of this quarry?
Its primary function is to train sort of emergency services, to teach voluntary overseas services. People are going to be going out on site to help and assist other people that are finding themselves out in Afghanistan, Iraq.
Because these sorts of vehicles have developed something of a bad reputation in the last few years as being just sort of big boys' toys. But what you're doing here, I mean, this is the difference between life and death in some situations.
Very much so. For these kind of guys and girls that are going out into these countries, it really is important that we teach them what they can do with the vehicle, and obviously importance of being safe.
And when you're going in to help somebody in an emergency situation, the last thing is for you to become a casualty
The rescuers
as well.
don't want to become the rescued. Exactly.
It's surprising to find that this once abandoned quarry is helping to prepare people for some of the most dangerous places on the planet. The philosophy here is all about using these vehicles professionally and safely, and the intensive training course takes up to 5 days. I've only got a few hours, but as I've driven a Land Rover for many years, Ed has kindly agreed to skip the theory and give me a crash course in some of the quarry's highlights.
So when you're ready, into first gear, throw caution to the wind and up you go. Do remember, if you bend it, you buy it.
One of the things that comes as a real surprise is you expect vehicles travelling at high speed, and actually this is high speed.
This is high speed. This is fast enough for us.
Did you ever think that you were going to be spending your adult life driving around at 2.5 miles an hour in a retired quarry?
No.
Of course, speed isn't everything, and I have a feeling Ed's about to put me through my paces.
More power for me. More. Good. Pushing that bow wave. I love the smell of mud on the exhaust. You feel the steering wheel just turn a little bit yourself?
Yeah.
You really got to hold that wheel. Excellent. Full left lock for me now. The safest way of doing what we're about to do is not to do it.
Okay.
This is where potentially we could fall out of the vehicle.
It's amazing how once you begin driving, you feel as if you could really be anywhere in the world. To my mind, it's an excellent way of giving real purpose to an area which may otherwise have become just another landfill.
Okay.
Right, we'll go and assess the top of this hill.
However, I can feel my enthusiasm waning as I realise Ed is planning a grand finale to my visit.
Wow, that is quite something, isn't it?
It is, the Hill of Doom. So, if you're
It's
ready...
quite reassuring, actually, that there's no sort of pile of debris of used cars at the bottom.
We've actually got it hidden just there
Yeah,
underneath
you better,
that
right.
bank.
I noticed a few broken windscreens over there, but let's give it a go.
Okay, let's head off. Hold your wheels nice and tight there for me. It's going to lock you in place. Start pushing a bit of brake on. Not too fast, remember, nice and gently. Good. Off the brake completely.
That's quite something, isn't it?
Fantastic.
Right, well, I'm going to go and bend this so I can keep it.
Okay, fine.
And then,
okay.
if that's all right with you?
No worries at all, that's fine.
It's thanks to the centuries of loving care by the people of Stamford that this ancient Lincolnshire town is famed for its beautifully preserved stone buildings. Yet for many years, one building has stood out like a sore thumb. The Stamford Corn Exchange has certainly seen better days. Its once fine facade was destroyed by fire in the 1920s, and after a botched repair, the building was left an ugly duckling. For over a century, the Corn Exchange has housed the local institution that is the Stamford Pantomime. And one man has been involved in every single performance for the last 50 years.
That's my first Stamford Pantomime players when I was, in fact, 15 years old.
In one of my lipsticky moods.
And many of the other members who are on there are still involved with the theatre, and their children are. And in fact, many marriages, in fact, have come out of pantomime. I met my wife through the theatre, and I can point several of these others out who also met their wives as dancing girls, etc. All amateur, you understand.
It's Mike's love of performing that 7 years ago inspired him to save the Corn Exchange after decades of neglect. But without anyone prepared to fund his grand vision, it was up to Mike to unleash a secret weapon.
Two bricks, please.
The Corn Exchange is being saved thanks to the camaraderie and commitment of Mike's fellow amateur thespians, the Stamford Players, who've risen to the challenge admirably by adding heavy-duty construction to their repertoire. Through numerous fundraising events and countless evenings and weekends of hard graft, Mike's merry band of volunteers plans to restore the building's stone facade and create a theatre fit for the new century.
My husband and I need something to do in our retirement, and we're now spending more time here than we are at home at the moment. But it's good. Enjoy it. Keeps you fit, keeps you young. Don't need to go to the gym. That's true.
I already know everyone here because I do the local pantomime, and it's been really good. And I've learnt a lot. I think woodwork, bricklaying, concrete, hinching wheelbarrows up, that sort of thing.
Yeah, 3 more clips. Doubles I want, not swivels.
We really and truthfully had no idea the task that we were taking on. We're now so far down the project, we can't stop. We anticipated it would take 5 years, we've already taken 7, and we're not quite halfway. So patience is quite an important part of a project such as this.
With so much care and energy being lavished on a humble old theatre many towns would have pulled down or sold off years ago, it's clear today's residents have as much pride in Stamford as did their ancestors, who first plundered the glorious local limestone. The final stop on my tour is somewhere I just couldn't miss, and where I've been promised a truly exceptional view. Just a short walk from the town centre itself is possibly the most grandiose expression of wealth, built entirely in stone. This is Burleigh House. Built between 1555 and 1587 by Elizabeth I's right-hand man, William Cecil, Burleigh is an astonishing expression of Elizabethan craftsmanship. He was his own architect, and the brilliance of the building we see today is testimony to his ambition and his vision.
It was a power statement as much as anything. This was Cecil's dynastic base, if you like. This was the house he built to say, I have arrived, I'm here, you know. The house would have been built by a large team of Freemasons. We don't know how many, but a very clever architect calculated that approximately 12,000 tons of stone is needed for just the outside skin, if you like, of the house, the outside walls of the four sides of the house.
And to get the best view of Cecil's power statement, you need to head for the roof, where he and his stonemasons really let their imaginations go wild.
It's an astonishing roofline. It was used as a promenade, as a walk for the family. It was clean, it was beautiful, and it was private. There were no prying ears of servants listening to conversations of affairs of state up on the roof. It's a fantasy roofline in a way. It was a way of displaying the builder's knowledge of architecture. Doric columns sprouting up everywhere as chimneys. But it's almost unique, I think, in this country.
Over 400 years ago, William Cecil had perhaps 40 stonemasons at work. Today, Burleigh boasts a team of just 3. Over the years, they've inserted many new pieces of locally quarried stone. But wherever possible, the aim is to repair the existing stonework rather than replace it. This sensitive attitude towards conserving Burleigh's Elizabethan splendour means that much of the mason's time is spent undoing some of the more insensitive work of previous generations. After the Second World War, vast sections of the building were repointed with modern cement, and this is now causing a serious headache.
Grady, you're caressing the building. What's going on here?
What we're doing here, Chris, is we're visually looking to see what joints are open for water penetration and which ones are in good order. And what you have here is hard cementing joints and lime joints that we've already replaced. Okay. Now what we find here is, because it is hard cement, the first problem you have is that the cement being so hard stays where it is and the stone erodes away, that what you get then is more water penetration. Obviously the stone erodes even faster then.
It's extraordinary to think that the integrity of the stone is still good,
yes,
but it's just almost a misapplied repair.
The cement was the popular thing at the time and was going to be the be-all and end-all, but what we find is with stone, obviously it has a negative effect.
With literally miles of cement pointing which needs to come out, it's perhaps unsurprising that the Burleigh masons have adopted modern machinery for the task. But I was a little apprehensive when Grady offered me a go. One slip of the hand while using an angle grinder with a diamond blade, and I could be leaving a very prominent mark in a Grade 1 listed building.
Very well done, Chris.
That crack you start opening up, and you can see exactly what you were talking about earlier. The cavity behind there is enormous, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it makes you look
completely differently to building like this. There's miles and miles of pieces that you just think, well, what's behind that? You
Yes.
know, what's causing that? There's another one there, another one further up. It's like painting the Forth Bridge, isn't it?
Slightly.
Never-ending job.
Yes.
Once the old cement is out, the masons repoint with a lime mortar, still made to the same mix as when Burleigh was first built. This basic but painstaking job is vital if the original stonework is to be protected from the elements for another 400 years. With acres of stonework to attend to in minute detail, it's obvious the masons must love this place. And after spending just a short while up here, I've definitely fallen under Burleigh's spell. It's quite some view.
Certainly is.
It's not until you come on the roof that you really appreciate the way that the whole thing fits together. How do you feel when you're working up here?
Well, personally, I'm quite honoured, I must admit, you know, because up on the roof we tend to see things that most people don't see on the ground, you know what I mean? You have lovely views and just wonderful stonework to look at all the time. It's great, you know, if you take the clock tower for instance, Gwyn worked on that a few years back and made a wonderful job, brought it back to its former glory. It was dirty, now we've brought it back to it's clean, and it looked like it did when it was first built, so yeah.
It can be quite chilly up here at times. when we did the clock tower, there was a leaf turning over underneath the first 5, the leaf dropping down, and it was freezing cold, and there was a gale force wind blowing, and I had to wait 40 minutes to hold that on the dowel before the glue dried.
So it's not all about good suntans and glamour then up here, is it? Despite the occasional hardships, Burleigh must surely be one of the best places to work for any stonemason. It's also the crowning glory of a region whose fortunes have been shaped by the people who have devoted themselves to achieving such extraordinary results from this most natural and ancient of materials. Next time, we'll be meeting 2 teachers. The first will instruct us in the craft of bodging, as he converts a living branch into an elegant and comfortable chair for the other to sit in, as he teaches us the art of telling stories.